I tried to tell y'all. I tried to tell y'all. This is going to be a surprise rant. I'm not even going to prepare y'all for this. I'm just going to drop it on Vimeo and put it on Patreon as an exclusive. And I'm just going to let y'all be happily surprised. But this video will be entitled 7 Reasons Why Keeping Claire Over Brittany is Absolutely Dumb. And we're just going to ride out from there. I had people trying to act as if I was being selfish or I was rooting solely for the men amongst Cookout to win by wanting Claire to go this week. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm never the emotional one. Now, if you see me just go complete freestyle and I just go crazy and I'm drunk, okay, yeah, you could say I'm being emotional in those instances. But for the most part, ladies and gentlemen, I've been sober this entire season. My analysis has been spot on, even when it has been unpopular to say so. I have been spot on. I tried to get people on board with why Kai was going after Claire way before he did it, so they would be okay to it happening. Even though I warned them of this outcome, they still went against the natural flow, the natural progression of what the game needed to be. And see, we're seeing this disconnect. And see, I was wise to bring this up. And see, I'm only going to expound on this further for patrons because I feel like the public can't handle this. I feel like the public has too much of that Davon influence, where everything is just emotions 24/7, vibes FC. You feel it, dig me? Nothing's about the logic, nothing's about the X's and O's. Nothing is about the actual strategy with a lot of these people. That's why it's important for me to recenter everything. You know, Claire is as cool with everyone left in the game as Xavier is. For whatever reason, I see more black people hating on Xavier for that than they hate on Claire for it. Now, if your argument is Claire deserves credit for doing this in a predominantly black house, yes, I'll smoke a bag of that. But Claire was gifted a 2 week of safety that would have never been gifted to a black player during a predominant white season. So, no matter how you shake it, Claire was still given preferential treatment under the same circumstances our black predecessors went through in previous seasons. So, Claire is also getting more help than black players have gotten from the perceived bottom as being outnumbered. And with that stated, Claire has still gone out of her way to name every black man she can at every turn as her target. It's not as if Claire has been trying to target all these non black folks. She has been towards trying to target these black folks. I'd argue that safety just gave her more of an excuse to throw those HOHs and throw those vetoes because she didn't have to be involved in any of that. So why be involved in any of that? It was very important to punish her right after that 2 weeks of safety by sending her right out the game. Now, by allowing her to touch the block, now she knows Kai is on to her even more. Remember, I told y'all a week ago she thought Kai could have been closer to her than Tiffany. Now she knows that isn't true because Tiffany had to talk Kai out of taking Claire out this week. So the jig is up there. Not only that, Claire has spoken out loud that she wants to throw up Kyland next to Xavier, and as a replacement nom, it's got to be Big D. So, like I said, she's after nothing but the black men. But once again, the emotional, and this is only a small percentage of the macro fan base, and I am in no way speaking of the Big Brother patrons of RBR. I'm speaking of the average black Mary Sue, if you will, that happens to be watching this game. They can't help but root for the women among Cookout because they see themselves in one of them, but then excuse their perception of who should be going home because of that. If Christian should have left last week, if Xavier wasn't shit for trying to save him, and then Xavier was cool again for letting him go, and then as soon as Kylan becomes HOH, everyone can agree it was a mistake to keep Christian. Then that's also the same people. There was a mistake to not keep Christian. Then the same people can agree the same mistake will be in letting Claire stay this time around. But once again, people forget how they felt a week ago once the new week comes. It's as if they purposely remove this memory so they can have selective amnesia because they don't want their favorite players to be held accountable. They want these black men to win all these comps early in the game, to have to be the bad cop at every turn, so their faves can just be in the cut whispering sweet nothings, making it seem like they don't know what's up. Give me your jury vote because I'm not winning shit. I'm not contributing to the Cookout Collective enough, but people gonna still act like I'm contributing as much as all the people getting all the blood on their hands. That's not how this works. If I'm winning the HOHs, which are sending all of these huge white male threats home that all you sisters are most threatened by, then I don't want to see y'all cuffing DX once we get in the jury as if this is the one non black man that can't go nowhere. Wait a minute. These black men have been taking arrows and bullets to guarantee y'all had a jury y'all were comfortable with. Now y'all want these black men to further sacrifice as y'all give up nothing by, okay, you just got rid of Christian, now sacrifice SB, Kylan. Kylan like, hold up, man. My guy X just sacrificed Christian, which I was okay with, but now I want to get rid of Claire. No, no, don't get rid of Claire. Brittany has 100 BB bucks, bro. Imagine what she could become. Well, imagine what DX could become if we let Claire stay here. And if DX is this butthurt over Claire being on the block, that he would target Kai off of this further shows why Claire needs to go. Because DX is too emotionally intertwined with Claire. He's closer to Claire than he'll ever be to Kylan then. Than he'll ever be to SB then. So you never take her off the block. This was a massive choke job. This feels like a little bit of production interference. How some of the strategy being implemented to make Kylan okay with taking Claire off involved him being for sure Brittany got 100 BB bucks. If Brittany isn't confirming this out loud out of her mouth, how are people just going this hard off of rumors and hearsay, pure gossip and conjecture? How are these people this sure? Because production wanted them to be sure. Because production wants Claire to stick around. Because production gave Claire 2 weeks of safety out of their ass. Why aren't these black people connecting the dots here? Clearly, this high roller room was designed to screw up this alliance. Why would I want someone around who, before jury, was gifted a twist out of nowhere which showed production preferential treatment? That means then it's highly probable that this same person in Claire will get 100 BB bucks next week, so she'll be just as threatening as Brittany was, but more threatening because now she's after the black man with the 100 BB bucks. Kylan, why make a 2 week deal with Brittany if you're just gonna break it in a matter of days? What's the point of this? And when I look at black fans that defend Tiffany for doing this, Tiffany's not even going to make Final Two. Claire and DX take each other every time because the jury is made up of black folks. But we have black fans who are so emotional. They believe, oh, it's just like real life. Black women do all this hard work just for black men to get the shine. That's their perspective on this. That somehow Hannah and Tiffany are doing most of the legwork. When Kylan and Xavier have won 3 HOHs, and what, 2 POVs now? I don't know the number, but my point is, how the hell is Tiffany and Hannah doing more legwork than these brothers? When these brothers are the ones that are being targeted the most by the non-black players left. That means they're doing the most work because they have the most blood, making them the most targeted. It makes zero sense to argue Tiffany and Hannah are doing as much work as these men if they aren't being targeted as much as these men. But once again, logic is something we lack, which is why I am necessary. But then when I use logic and break this down, people try to create the narrative that I'm somehow becoming anti-Tiffany. No, quite the contrary. I'm just aware that Tiffany is a control freak. Tiffany is so focused on having more control than Kylan that, in my opinion, Tiffany can't see the forest from the trees herself. See, if this six would have just been okay with cutting Claire, like I said, instead of it being four people still intact with Tiffany, Claire, DX, and Hannah, instead of it being those four heading into next week competing for an HOH on the same terms with each other, it would have been Claire gone, then it would have been just DX, Tiffany, and Hannah competing for the next HOH, making DX on an island now because there is no Claire backing them up for the HOH. As long as you keep DX from winning the HOH, there's a chance you can backdoor DX. There's also a chance you can take him out before the coup d'etat. But by allowing Claire to make next week, understand, ladies and gentlemen, they are also giving her the opportunity to also have a chance at the coup d'etat along with DX. And if, heaven forbid, her or DX win the next HOH, they both possibly. I think if one of those two win the next HOH, one of them gets the next coup d'etat guaranteed. And then we could have a scenario where Kylan and Xavier are gone before Final Eight. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to ask these questions of the black fans who wanted Claire to stay this bad. Do you not realize that your emotional decision to want Claire to stay all for one player's game to increase, which at maximum only helps two out of the six players the most because of Hannah and Tiffany, which means by y'all wanting Claire to stay, y'all have chosen Claire over four members of the cookout. Y'all basically have drawn a line in the sand where if Tiffany and Hannah do not win this game, you don't care if a black person doesn't win. Am I the only one that notices how dangerous this is? See, I gotta point these things out because if I don't do it, people gonna act like they don't see it. But let's get into the 7 reasons why keeping Claire over Brittany is dumb, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to give y'all a cold opening. Oh, that was a scorching, scalding with the T10 minutes. I know it was, but I want to give y'all a retro rant. I want to give y'all something to let y'all know ain't nothing changed. I'm still me, coach. I'm just enjoying my off time and my free time when I get it, coach. You feel it, dig me? But let's get into these reasons. Reason number 1 why keeping Claire over Brittany is dumb. And understand some of these reasons I may have freestyled a little bit earlier, okay? Number 1, it makes jokers work with Tiffany over Kylan. Kylan, for your game, I get it. You just got into it with Ozza this week. You're thinking, okay, if Ozza and Brittany both came for me, Ozza must be a staunch Brittany number. I may never get her to flip with Big D, so I might as well take Brittany out because I believe Claire, I can work my way back in Claire's good graces. Well, here's the thing. You should have never threw Claire up if you wanted to work your way back in her good graces. Here's the thing. You should have just won the veto yourself so Claire can win the second veto to take herself off if you just want to be in her good graces. But you choosing to let Alyssa win so you can have the second veto tells me, Kylan, you care about control. If you care about control, then I don't see how you feel like you have more control with Brittany gone and Claire staying compared to Brittany staying and Claire leaving. If you have a 2 week deal with Brittany, you should feel more secure with her than Claire, who you were sketched out by over the last 2 weeks. It just doesn't make any sense. It feels as if production may have interfered a little bit because from a continuity storyline perspective, it just doesn't add up that Kylan would prioritize Brittany going before Claire if he has the choice. He told Xavier in the storage room he prefers Claire goes before Brittany every time, but he will settle for Brittany leaving over her. He had the choice and he chose to keep Claire. This makes no sense. So that's the first reason, ladies and gentlemen. By him doing this, and because see, you guys got to look at this from a macro scale perspective. The plan was always for Kylan to be forced to go after Claire himself because it doesn't make sense for anyone else to go after Claire among the six, except maybe Ozza and Xavier and Big D. Those four are really the only people who can go after Claire because Tiffany and Hannah are in too deep. Meaning this is your first shot. If Claire has $0 because she bet the 50 she had, this is the opportunity to take her out easily without thinking twice. Send her to the shadow realm. If you're Kylan and you have a 2 week deal with Brittany, you should be less threatened by her money because she can't do nothing to you next week because of the deal. Now, I get it. Brittany planned on breaking her promise to Kylan after week 2 when she made this same deal with him. I get that side of it if people are trying to make that argument. I'm just saying for Kylan's position, to break that promise so soon, he isn't doing himself any favors because I guarantee you he just lost Brittany's jury vote for this perceived backdoor. All right? So because the plan should have been for Kylan to take out Claire, that would have forced Tiffany or that would have forced Hannah to go after SB for her game. It would have forced Tiffany to go after who? Brittany for her game. Tiffany going after Brittany guarantees Ozza and Big D stay mad at Tiffany over Kylan. Kylan taking out Brittany before taking out Claire lets Tiffany off the hook for the plan she came up with herself. So this is Tiffany walking back her own plan just to save Claire, putting four members of the cookout in harm's way just for her non-black friend. After Tiffany went off over Ozza doing the same very thing over Brittany during week 2. After her going off over Kylan doing the same very thing a week ago for SB. After her going off over Alyssa and Xavier possibly doing the same thing for Christian last week. Do you not see the hypocrisy? See, I need to state these things immediately in rapid fire succession and in freestyle format so people understand. I'm telling the truth here. And if it can so easily come off the dome, then it is so easily I'm so easily able to obtain the information because it is factual. If I was coming up with this, if I was just coming up with this stuff and it wasn't truthful or if it wasn't factual, I couldn't so easily pinpoint the week it happened in. And all of my rants, I document these things too. So I am the almanac. I am the time capsule. But that's the first reason why this is stupid. You hand Tiffany the late game of being able to work with jokers over you, Kylan, when in reality, you should have been prioritizing working with those jokers late game because SB had a better relationship with jokers, I'd argue, than Claire had a few weeks ago. Only last week, when SB started to lie to Joker's face over why she wanted them to throw the veto so she could come off over Brittany, did SB begin to ruin her relationship with that group of three. That's important to mention. Now let's get into reason number two. I don't want this video to be too long. Reason number two why keeping Claire over Brittany is dumb. It gives Claire and DX the chance to drag Ozza to final three over Claire and Hannah. For all the over Tiffany and Hannah. So for all the Tiffany and Hannah fans who think keeping Claire this week is so great because it's better for Tiffany and Hannah's game, you do know with Brittany leaving this week, Ozza being bitter towards Kylan, it gives Claire now the pivoting prowess if she can figure out a way to get rid of Hannah and Tiffany. Claire and DX could just go to Final Three with Ozza because both of them know that is the one person they probably wash easily. Now, here's my thing, and I'm going to keep driving this point home. It makes no sense for Claire and DX to ever take anyone other than the two of them to Final Two because this jury is made up of too many black folks. Unless SB skates by that far, then they could take her to Final Two. But right now, as it stands, Claire and DX is a solid Final Two that now Tiffany and Hannah cannot penetrate. So imagine fighting so hard to keep a woman, believing she's best for your game, when in reality, all you're doing is giving DX more options to not need you. See, I got to explain this to the Tiffany fans because some of them are Davon fans. They need to understand what they're happy about this week could actually be what guarantees Tiffany can never make the end now. Understand, if Claire leaves early, Tiffany comes off less threatening because she doesn't have Claire around at all times. Kylan might be willing to drag Tiffany further, especially further than Ozza, if there is no Claire around. If Claire is still here, if Tiffany convinces Kai to take out someone like Brittany before Claire, and then Claire gets Kai out, Kai is going to be bitter towards Tiffany, he's going to be bitter towards DX, he's going to be bitter towards Hannah, and that doesn't help Tiffany either. Because now she loses Kylan's vote. She hands Claire and DX the late game because her and Hannah can't beat Claire and DX mano y mano. In a Final Four scenario, Tiffany has no control over DX or Claire anymore. In a Final Four scenario, Hannah has no control over DX and Claire anymore. Y'all gotta look at it that way. See, everyone is so worried about a Final Six scenario where the cookout is intact, but Kai and Xavier are unstoppable. Why are y'all so scared of that? But y'all don't mind a scenario where this entire six-person Black Alliance could become the laughing stock of this community by blowing a 3-1 lead, by having 6 members out of 11 left in the game and not having a winner. Y'all are willing to risk that embarrassment because y'all like Claire that much? Please remind me why Kylan is so hated for favoring SB then. Y'all favor Claire a lot more than he does. Please explain to me why Xavier is so hated for his affinity for Alyssa then. Because y'all are choosing Claire over 4 out of the 6 members of the cookout. Y'all are choosing Claire over 66.7% of this Black Alliance. Here I am thinking we was a cookout crew. For reason number 3, why keeping Claire over Brittany is dumb. It increases the chances Claire or DX win the coup d'etat in 2 weeks because Claire will get 100 next week and DX has 100 stashed, meaning he will probably have 200 going into the coup d'etat week. So you see that, ladies and gentlemen? If I'm DX, I probably don't even compete in the roulette, believing I have more than enough money for the coup d'etat. And to be honest, If he gets another 100, he might be able to compete in the roulette, spend 125, and still have 75. So if he gets 100 the third week, he might still get the coup d'etat with 175. Now I might be off on the money there. It might be above 200 for the coup d'etat, but if it's 175 or lower, DX can compete in all three twists because he keeps getting 100, and he spent 50, but he kept. Well, he didn't even spend the 50. That's right. He kept the 100 stash. So man, they are handing these people the game. They're handing them the game, and they believe as long as it seems to help Tiffany's immediate game, it's best. Skip the six. All that matters is Tiffany now. What are we doing? What are we doing? You don't think it would be a massive embarrassment on Tiffany's legacy for her to cape this hard for Claire and then have Claire end up winning this game over every black person? You don't think that'll make Tiffany look like a joke? See, this tells me these fans do not have faith that Tiffany is as great as they say she is. Because if they truly had faith she was, they would cut Claire right now, believing Tiffany could figure out a way to the end. They would do it. They don't got the faith in her like they say they do. This is proof they think Tiffany needs above and beyond as much help as possible. Tiffany needs all the Infinity Stones or else she can't compete. This doesn't look good. You know? And see, I'm someone who is more on the side of Tiffany as an elite player who doesn't need Claire, and she can prove she doesn't need her by letting her go. By Tiffany, number one, creating the excuse she can't touch the block next to Claire because she'll go home over her. Then for her to create the argument that Brittany is a bigger threat than Claire later on in that week, and for Kai to buy both of those lies? Kyland, man, it seemed like you've been paid off to stop playing well. Reason number four. How is Brittany more of a threat than Claire, but she was less of a threat than SB a week ago? Last week, if Noms had stayed the same, SB would have went out over Brittany. Why is SB viewed as more of a threat than Claire when SB only has Kylan? Claire has DX, the most threatening physical player, Tiffany, the most threatening social player, and Hannah, one of the most well rounded players in the game. How does Kylan make SB so threatening, but three allies don't make Claire as threatening? See, if I was Ozza or Big D, I would be completely confused. How is Brittany more of a threat than Claire? In what world? Reason number five, because once again, I don't want to make this video too long. Kylan X and Big D are the only members in Cookout who can target Claire. Tiffany and Hannah refuse to target Claire and DX. If Tiffany and Claire can't target those two, but they can target Brittany, then it makes no sense for Kai to get out Brittany his HOH. If Hannah should be the one to take out SB, that means for this alliance, Tiffany is designated to take out Brittany. Tiffany complained about the position Brittany put her in last week by making her the swing vote when Brittany's job was to be the swing. So why a week later is Tiffany being given a pass by fans for running from her job by sacrificing Claire and targeting Brittany herself? It's because Tiffany fans aren't Cookout fans anymore. They are becoming what Davon turned them into during last year's AFP vote: selfish and emotional. See, if you really break all of this down, ladies and gentlemen, the same way Brittany put Tiffany in a bad spot by promising her vote to Christian prematurely when she should have never did it because Christian didn't have the votes, which forced Tiffany to be perceived as in the Brittany position. Tiffany, a week later, literally asked Kylan to do her job by getting out Brittany when Tiffany is never going to get out Claire herself, which further shows Tiffany is completely selfish. So when people try to question these black men by making it seem like they aren't all in with the Cookout because they're looking out for their games, while they simultaneously make it seem like Tiffany can never look out for the Cookout in the best interest of her own individual game, this further shows that these people are narrow minded and they have an agenda based off gender. An agenda. That's what they have. Hashtag that. They have an agenda based off gender. An agenda. That's what they have right now. For reason number six, here we go. Why keeping Claire over Brittany is dumb. Tiffany didn't want to permanently lose Ozza and Big D by taking Brittany out herself. So she convinced Kyland to do it because he just got into drama with Ozza as well, guaranteeing Kyland would burn that bridge for her. Good gameplay for Tiffany, but it's also cowardice because she's not contributing to the six the way she claimed she wanted Ozza and Big D to start contributing so much. How do you complain? How do you complain Ozza and Big D don't contribute enough? And then the one job you're supposed to have to do for the six, because Ozza and Big D can't take Brittany out themselves. So really, the only HOH that makes sense for Tiffany to have in targeting a non-Cookout member is Brittany, based off of the mathematics of it all. For her to coward away from doing that just because she wants more control over a Final 10 scenario, this is just going to create a scenario where if the six does make final six, Tiffany is just going to burn a lot of bridges at the last second. So now Tiffany and Hannah are in a position where they have to betray the Cookout to justify keeping Claire over Brittany this week. If they don't betray the Cookout for Claire, then really they're running the risk of getting extra blood on their hands and having more of a bitter jury towards them at the last second by not letting DX or Claire make it past final seven. So this could easily backfire on Tiffany and Hannah for trying to have it their way so much this week. So that's the poetic justice of it all. While it seems like Kylan's game is completely screwed, SB could easily win next week's HOH, and before you know it, all these people are in a lot bigger of trouble. But the reason why SB isn't more threatening than Claire, from my perspective, is because I believe SB can be talked in the back during DX. I don't believe for a second Claire can be talked in the back during DX. I don't believe for a second Claire can be talked into going after Brittany, meaning she needs to go. But I believe SB could be talked into targeting DX. I get it. Some people would say, well, SB's going to go after probably a Hannah though, Dave. Maybe even a Big D though, Dave. So at the end of the day, that's still a little risky. Yeah, but we know for a fact Claire goes for Kyland and Xavier, the two men who have made it possible for these three ungrateful women among the Cookout to even be in jury. Because if those dudes don't win, listen, if Kyland don't clutch the week 2 HOH that Brent wins, then let's keep it real here. Ozza could have went home week 2. So for me to see Ozza and Kylan now have this problem with each other over him not throwing HOH to her, it's like, hold up, yo. If it wasn't for Kylan winning that second HOH, Ozza, you wouldn't even be in jury, possibly. So you got to take all of these things with a grain of salt, and y'all got to realize that cause and effect. And I'm someone who is not with the results-based oriented type analysis, but I can't help but look at the gameplay on a plane and realize the Cookout choked massively here by keeping Claire. But let's finish this video on up. If DX or Claire win this game over a Cookout member, there is no one to blame besides Tiffany for this Operation Save Becky plan. Kylan was shitted on last week for trying to keep SB, but now Tiffany is being praised by the community for keeping her non-black friend in the game. This proves black women don't hate white women. They just hate the white women capable of sleeping with a black man. Let's talk about it here. But here's my thing. Claire had a crush on Xavier earlier in the season, but crashed and burned, got curved. Would they have wanted her gone this week over Brittany if Xavier chose Claire over Whitney and Alyssa? See, I gotta ask these questions because the decision making of certain fans isn't logical. This white girl likes this black guy? Oh, I hate her. But Claire, the girl who actually lusts for a black guy too, but couldn't pull him because she's as tall as these black men. But we love her though, because she isn't capable of pulling one of them. So the argument started off as, we don't hate SB because she's with Kai. We hate SB because she could get in the way of the Cookout. We don't hate Alyssa because she's with Xavier now. We hate her because she could get in the way of the Cookout. But then when you say Claire needs to go because she could get in the way of the Cookout, then they got all these excuses. The same legitimate reasoning should be used for why Claire needs to go. This week exposed a lot of people. This week exposed why, as a community outside of this house, we can't stay on code for long. Because emotions come into play, and people just start going in their own direction based off of random stuff. Random stuff. Now, as for the final, seventh, and last reason why keeping Claire is dumb, she has no enemies. Why is Xavier not having enemies talked about more? This guy won an HOH, got out Brent, and is playing amazing. Claire won no HOHs, got no one out, and just followed Tiffany and Hannah around to gain information about the black players during her weeks of safety. Why doesn't Hannah see Claire as a threat as much as SB? Claire is SB with DX's height. Everybody keep talking about SB like she's this brainiac girl who will be good at these comps. Claire is a brainiac too who looks like a WNBA player. How is that not more of a threat? Like, put it this way. If Claire looked like Christmas and had her body definition, everyone would admit she's a threat. But because Claire doesn't have that muscle definition, but she has that domineering height to go with it, looking like an Amazonian, people act like, oh, Claire's not a comp beast. Oh, Claire's not this, Claire's not that. All because they want Tiffany to outlast the black men. That's what this is all about. I got to keep driving this point home. It's such a selfish and narrow minded perspective on the game, but this is what we got to deal with. And it's my job to show you all this so you all will course correct. And if you have friends who are following this path, hopefully you can diagnose that they're on their way down this path and stop them from it. Because this isn't conducive to someone from the Cookout being able to win the game. What's happening right now is going to lead to someone that isn't from the Cookout winning, and all of us having the biggest egg on our faces. Because trust me, if someone not from the Cookout wins this season, the entire black community is going to have a civil war. You're going to have certain fans that don't care as long as Tiffany gets the AFP. It's going to turn into that Davon stuff all over again over here. But you're going to also have more fans who are going to be pissed off at these Tiffany fans because they sacrificed this entire alliance win conditions just so Tiffany could have more control. The type of control she can't even win comps to take advantage of. Clearly, because she choked the HOH comp this week that was thrown to her. So my thing is, if you really believe Hannah and Tiffany can win a comp over DX and Claire in Final Four, this makes sense to me. But if you honestly believe, but if you don't believe Hannah and Tiffany can win a comp over Claire and DX under pressure, then I don't understand what any fan is doing rooting for Claire to stay. Claire won no HOH, got no one out, and just followed Tiffany and Hannah around. Claire is SB with DX's height. How is a woman the size of a man less threatening than Moaning Myrtle? I mean, this is like Brienne of Tarth from fucking Game of Thrones walking around with no armor on, and people are acting like, oh, she's as much of a threat as little Arya, a little Sansa over there. She looks no different from the rest of them. Are you kidding me? Stop it. Stop it. Okay, if we had a black woman who played this game who was outnumbered by a whole bunch of white folks and she was 6'1", 6'2", or something like that, that black woman would never be able to skate by like this, get 2 weeks of safety like this, have white people cape for her like this. I'm trying to show y'all that Claire is being given rope that we don't even give our own black players when they're outnumbered on other seasons. But once again, Kyland caring about SB is a problem. Xavier caring for Alyssa is a problem. My argument is none of it should be a problem if one thing isn't a problem. But if you find one thing to be a huge problem, you should find it all to be a problem. Me, I ain't been tripping on none of that stuff this season. Have I? I haven't. You know what I'm saying? So for me, this is consistent. But for these Tiffany fans, it's very inconsistent and it's very out of character for them to justify why Christian should have left, but then cape for Claire. Because in theory, Tiffany could have used Christian just like she could have used Claire. So now is the argument, oh, well, we want to keep Claire to make up for not keeping Christian? Yeah, but I'd argue Brittany could have been used by Tiffany easier than Claire. Claire will never be used by Tiffany. Claire is unusable. Whereas Brittany could have still been used by Azza possibly, Big D possibly, Tiffany possibly. You're literally getting rid of someone the Cookout had more of an influence over, and you're keeping someone the Cookout has no influence over. And we have people trying to convince us they're pro-black. Yeah, okay. Now, if Hannah, Brittany, and SB are so threatened by Xavier not having enemies, they should be threatened by Claire too. The fact that this is only being used to castigate Excalibur just further shows why this was a choke. I don't see Hannah or Tiffany ever winning an HOH to get out Claire or DX, but they are the only players Claire and DX would throw HOH to. If Hannah and Tiffany choose Claire and DX over the Cookout, all the fans who bash Kai and Xavier owe them apologies. I'm seeing fans say they would prefer DX or Claire winning before Big D and Azza. Well, if you're happy Claire is staying this week, you're already proving to me you're rooting for DX and Claire to win before Xavier and Kylan as well. So really, you want DX and Claire to win before 4 members of the Cookout, but you're too scared to say it right now. So instead, you settle on Ozza and Big D, knowing it's easy to bash them right now. This is proof Tiffany fans have already flipped on the Cookout. They chose Claire over 4 black people this week, and those are the facts. So, ladies and gentlemen, did this hard hitting 36-minute video have a lot of information in it? I tried to make this one of those quick hitters, one of them rapid fire rants. Something to give patrons something to hold on to. I'm, of course, going to try my best to give you all a Wednesday night rant, barring we have a lot more new information that surfaces. But if more information doesn't surface, I think this rant on its own will be enough to suffice until Thursday night. But once again, there's no way a flip can happen at this point because it's Big D next to Brittany. And I don't even want Big D to go home in this scenario. I really don't. If this had been Claire and Big D, I wouldn't have wanted Big D to go home in that scenario either. Honestly, there is no scenario this week where I want Big D going home. Okay? And and at the end of the day, if it couldn't be Claire, I'm happy it's Brittany being gone because I am still a fan of DX, but it's winning time now. And no matter how I may be a fan of whoever, the 6 comes before everyone else. And for me, the 6 should prioritize taking out the people who are capable of winning out. Claire and DX are capable of double tapping. What I mean by that is DX can win HOH, Claire wins it the next week, DX wins it the next week, Claire wins it the next week, DX wins it the next week. As long as they keep double tapping, there's no way the Cookout can ever work this way back. I'm fearful that this is what's going to happen because when you add the twist on top of the next HOH comp, it's very likely that even the roulette doesn't help the majority alliance in this scenario unless Claire and DX win HOH and then the roulette helps them change the noms. But even then, after veto, the HOH could still put another black person up next to another black person if the roulette didn't change enough. There's a lot of different ways this game can go down, but at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I think this entire alliance made a huge miscalculation. But I mainly blame Hannah and Tiffany the most. Tiffany, you should have known better. You've been talking so much backseat driver bullshit about how all these people need to start playing for their 6 and not for themselves. You bash Kyland for weeks on end for playing for himself just for you to play for yourself this week. You know what I'm saying? You didn't play for the 6's best interest. You played for yourself. And the best interest you think that is yourself isn't even yourself's best interest because Claire ain't taking you to the end, Tiffany. She's not. She's not. She is more likely to take Ozza and Big D to Final Four with her and DX than she's going to take you and Hannah. And you should see this coming. But for whatever reason, Tiffany is super paranoid towards these black folks. But when it comes to this girl Claire, even though she schemes with her all the time, she doesn't think she's capable of scheming against her. Tiffany, this might be your biggest blind spot in this game. And all I can do is hope you make up for this in the future. Because all of this is on you if we don't get a black winner. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope y'all have enjoyed this rant. I'm Dave Smith with Recency Bias Radio, where no one is safe from criticism. And I'm out, Coach. Until next time.